All right, let's talk about championship weekend, man. What a big weekend in the NFL. What are your guys' thoughts?
If you don't care about the NFL, tune out now because this is probably going to get lengthy. That's what I think.
That's fair.
Let's breeze over this NFC Championship really quick. Let's get this out of the way.
Honestly, man, I don't want to breeze over it
Why?
ridiculous because I thought Kyle Shanahan did an unbelievable job with a third-string quarterback all year.
What a crazy.
And what he was able to do for that long was unbelievable. But once that guy got hurt, boy, that game was cooked.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Did you
to
see the
watch.
news that it came out that Brock had a torn UCL?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, what is going on? Come back. What's wrong with
And
you?
then Josh Johnson goes down, and you're
Right.
like, holy mackerel, man. And then Christian McCaffrey,
Looks like
is
he's
going to
put
be
on the helmet with the mic.
going to be a emergency quarterback. I mean, that turned on its head really quickly, but the Eagles are legit.
They're
man.
legit.
And we can talk about, okay, well, if Brock Purdy stays healthy in that game, it's a different game. But let's talk about why he's not healthy. The Eagles get
Right.
pressure on the quarterback at a ridiculous rate. They led the league in sacks. They were like second in pressure percentage.
Right.
Hassan Reddick, people don't even know. They have multiple guys with double-digit sacks, but I played against Hassan Reddick at Temple. He terrorized us at home. We ended up winning the game late. I think Dorsey's had a long run that sort of sprung us and got us up out of the hole we were in. But Hassan Reddick was unbelievable.
And
And
he's been awesome down the end of the end stretch of the season.
What in the early part of that game, though? What was Kyle Shanahan doing? I talk about him scheming up and exploiting matchups. He tried to block him with a tight end on that first sack, and he tried to block him with Jawan Jennings on that second sack on a rollout. It's just like, man, at some point you're going to have to respect that pass rush, and it didn't feel like they respected it enough early in that game.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The Eagles, their secondary has been talked about all year, right? James Bradbury, Darius Slay been playing awesome. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's back. Avonte Maddox came back in this game. I think they were the number one secondary this year, pretty sure.
Right.
But no one really talks about their front seven, and I know at points in this season they've had a somewhat leaky run defense. But when you look at, Jordan Davis was hurt for a stretch. I believe Fletcher Cox missed some games. I believe Javon Hargrave missed some games. And those are three great interior defensive linemen. Javon Hargrave, one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the NFL. I would honestly say the same thing with Fletcher Cox. I don't feel like he's
borderline Hall of Famer at this point.
Yeah, I feel like he hasn't gotten.
Is he even borderline at this point?
I feel like he hasn't gotten nearly enough love in his career because he is one of the best defensive tackles over the last decade plus.
Playmaker and just normal,
just straight up
run of the mill, stopping the run.
Yeah. And then, like you mentioned with Hassan Reddick, he's been unblockable.
16 sacks, and no one knows about it.
Right, he's been unblockable off the edge. And I think 12 and a half of them came in the last 7 games. Pretty sure.
It's ridiculous.
So he's been off the charts. I think their weakest point is their backers.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how Kansas City plays against that. But to me, that's the only weak point on Philadelphia's team is their backers, because offensive line, arguably the best in the league.
The best complete team in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Secondary, best in the league. Offensive line, arguably the best in the league. They've got a great trio of running backs: Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and Boston Scott. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, one of the best 1-2 punch receiver combos in the league. Dallas Goedert, to me, one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. So they're loaded everywhere. My only concern for them moving forward is Jalen Hurts. Just he didn't look like himself.
He's got the shoulder injury.
I know, and that's why.
And the throwing of the football is a little bit down, but their O-line can pick up for him. I mean, the walk-in. I knew that it was going to be a pretty lopsided game relatively early. I didn't know Brock Purdy was going to get hurt like that and it was going to get that lopsided. But I had a feeling the Eagles were going to win very early after that walk-in touchdown by Miles Sanders. Where you have a bunch of double teams. There's an inside zone play, and you just see Lane Johnson and
Jason
Kelce, Isaac Suamalo, all these guys, Jordan Mailata just rolling the 49ers front, which was one of the best in the league all year, just rolling them off the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a physicality, and I think, and we'll get to the AFC Championship game as well, but I think when you look at the NFC versus the AFC has all the quarterbacks, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes.
Yeah.
NFC plays with some physicality, man.
Which it's always
that rough and tumble game, the Cowboys versus the Niners, and then that game in particular, that really physical.
It's always been reversed. For the majority of our lifetimes, like the NFC's always had the top flight elite quarterbacks, and the AFC's always kind of been the rough and tough, gritty division. Because obviously they had Brady and Manning, but outside of that, it was more like gritty and grimy teams.
The Steelers, right?
Like, and now it's kind of flipped to where the NFC is a little bit more physical and the AFC is a little bit more high flying. So just the natural progression of football. But I'm with you. I thought Philadelphia was going to win this game relatively easy, but I thought it was going to be because of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Right.
Because if there is a weakness that the 49ers have, it's their secondary.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't – I think they were like 17th or 18th this year, which I think part of that is because teams know they can't run the ball against them, so they have to kind of divert to passing the ball.
Right.
But when you look at – what they have in Travarius Ward and Lenore on the outside, they're solid corners, but they're not great. They're exploitable, especially when you have top flight receivers. Mm-hmm. So I was expecting Philadelphia to win because I thought they had that matchup, and they just ended up out physicaling the most physical team in the NFL.
And Jalen was sailing some balls. Let's just be honest. I mean, he wasn't himself.
High balls.
Even the one to Devontae Smith was a little bit high, and Devontae had to go make a play. And obviously that wasn't a catch. We get that, and it ended up being a touchdown. That did not decide the game, though. No. I don't want to hear about officiating on that particular. We'll get to officiating, but I don't want to hear about it there. But he was sailing balls, and he's just lucky in a lot of ways that he has the most complete team in football.
Absolutely,
right now.
But even his legs, he's more hesitant to run the ball right now, and Nick Sirianni's more hesitant. Shane Steichen are more hesitant to draw up run plays for him right now, because no matter how valuable his legs are, which we know, they cannot afford to lose him as a passer. So they're having to kind of teeter on this line of how much do we run him, how much do we protect him, how much do we just drop back pass. And that kind of worries me because that's not what their offense has been all year.